come at this as a child who grew up immediately after the Second World War and went to public schools. I received the VP medal at the end of the Second World War, Victory in the Pacific. All children in public schools at least got that bronze medal, and I still have mine. I received from my teacher in early 1949 the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which Dr. Evatt, the President of the General Assembly, had brought into operation from the chair, and which we were all given. It was on airmail paper. I don't know if anybody here got that at the time, but it was a very important development, and we were all still getting over the terrible suffering of the Second World War. And I remember the day the King died. I was at Fort Street High School in Sydney, the oldest public school in Australia, and we were assembled and told the King had died, and we were all sent home. And the radio stations were full of funereal music because the King was greatly loved and respected, having unexpectedly become the monarch and having done his duty, a great sense of duty, which certainly his daughter Elizabeth inherited. At school, when I did well, I received on my assignment a little stamp with the crown of St. Edward. It was the stamp which was put on it, and very occasionally when I did extremely well, I received the stamp put on my wrist, or I believe once on my forehead. And I have to admit that when you get these symbols as a child, they're symbols that sort of enter your thinking. Now, no child today gets a stamp of the royal crown of St. Edward, and they certainly wouldn't get anything put on their forehead. It would probably be regarded as serious assault. But that was how I was raised, and that was how it was in Australia of those times. And so, if I'm honest, I would have to say that part of my affection and respect for the Queen is that her life has accompanied my own. Mine has accompanied her life, and I was there when she began as Queen, and it really is a somewhat astonishing thing that the same monarch is still in office. There have been, I think, 12 Australian Prime Ministers, 15 English Prime Ministers since that time that she's seen off, but she's still there doing her duty. I had the privilege recently of going to Buckingham Palace when the work of the Eminent Persons Group was inaugurated, and we all went in there, and as I entered the palace, it was something that resonated in my mind with an experience I've had from time to time of going to a prison. As a lawyer, you often go to prisons as a young lawyer, and judges in our system have the power to visit prisons, and I would go to prisons when I was President of the Court of Appeal. And as I went in and the doors slowly opened and the cars moved in and the doors slowly closed and the guards were there and you were sort of ushered through, it really brought home to me that the Queen, well, she lives in a most wonderful house and she's got wonderful paintings and all of the treasures that are there, but it's a kind of prison, a prison of duty, and she has accepted that and she's performed her duty admirably over a very long time. So I therefore came at this issue when Mr. Keating announced that we would have a referendum on a republic. I came at the issue with a background of respect and affection for the Queen, but also a kind of lawyer's belief that there were features of the system of government which were good and sound, and that a very good reason had to be presented before we should abandon that system. I'm not saying that I couldn't have been convinced. If I'd been advising Mr. Keating as to how he should have gone about his Republic referendum, I could have told him many things that should have been done at that time if your mind was fixed upon converting Australia from a crowned republic to an uncrowned republic. But I wasn't asked, and I kept my counsel, and I retained my own point of view. Now, there would be people in this audience tonight who would be what I would say, with no disrespect, would be jewellery and crown monarchists. And there would be people here tonight who would be people who like a robust monarchy. And there'd be people here tonight who would see a big link between the monarchy and God. And there'd be people here tonight who would see a very strong connection between the monarchy and the flag. Now, I'm not one of those. I don't think it would be a good thing to have a robust monarchy. I don't think it would be a good thing to have an interfering monarch. I don't think it would be a good thing to have a monarch who was too visible. Indeed, I think a particular advantage of our Australian system is that we don't have a monarch who's around all the time. I think it's an advantage, not a disadvantage, that the Queen lives a long way away, that she comes when she's invited, she has perfect manners, she says what is correct, she takes advice and has always done so, she doesn't interfere or intrude, she does her duty, and then she goes home. And I happen to think that's a pretty good system. Heads of state can be a terrible trouble. Heads of state can be a great nuisance. And the alternative systems for electing heads of state pose a whole lot of dangers and difficulties. So, whilst I understood Jai's point about the flag, I don't think that was there in the charter that I drew. There was no mention of the flag. I can see arguments for having a flag, a different flag. And though I would still count myself as an Anglican, albeit a Sydney Diocese Anglican. Yes, well, I saw altogether too much crossing at this dinner. But I don't believe that it is essential to have the constitutional monarchy involved with the issue of religion. I know perfectly good people, good fellow citizens, who are not religious or who are against religion. And I don't think it's wise to confuse issues. I think it's wise, as ACM in the beginning did, to focus very clearly, very narrowly on the issue of the constitutional monarchy as a system.